Hi, my name is Linda Wayman, and I guess I would call myself a kitchen alchemist. Alchemy is an old word really about the combination of metals. But alchemy really is chemistry. You take something, a this, and you make a that out of it. It's sort of like an egg becomes an omelet. So it's about taking one thing and making it into something else. Cooking is an art. And I think the preparation of food is also we with our eyes. And when you make a plate of food and the way it's either arranged or the colors that you're using together or the way you've mounted it on the plate, I look at that as a plate of art. And if it happens to taste good, then all of your senses, are woken up and happiness happens. For me, cooking is an art of happiness, it's an art of love, and bringing community together. People love to come together to eat, not necessarily to cook, but often they love to come together to eat. I've been an adventurous eater since I was a little kid, and so the passion for cooking actually has been growing over the decades because I now have more time to devote to it, as opposed to being rushed trying to make dinner for a family. Now, I wake up, I go to bed at night thinking, what are you going to have to eat tomorrow? I get up in the morning looking forward to what I'm going to eat, and therefore what I'm going to make. So I'm a passionate eater. I'm constantly visualizing. I visualize the paintings that I'm doing even before I paint them, or a mask that I'm making even before I've made it. I can see it. Same thing with looking in the refrigerator. I'm seeing this and that and that. And I said, well, I know what I can make. I'm already visualizing it. So I don't know if it's so much thinking. It feels to me more about a visual process that feels more innate. Art is all around me. My house is like a museum because I paint, and I have some things that I've made that I put on the wall. And so whenever I look around any room, I said, how could I make this function better, or how could I make it pretty? How could I make it more attractive, more comfortable? So I don't think about it so much as thinking. It feels more like an intuitive experience of gathering something and making something of it. The art of creating in the kitchen, I guess maybe a willingness to experiment. I'll go back to the egg example. So you take an egg, you put it in the pan on low, a little salt and pepper, turn it over, you have a fried egg. Okay, so you start with an egg. Let's say I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna make a scrambled egg. So you take an egg, you crack it in the bowl, put a little water in it, and then put a little salt and pepper, cook it on low. Say, what if I added some vegetables? What vegetable would go in that? And so you chop up some scallions the next time, or maybe add some sriracha sauce because you want to make it spicy. Just take some one thing and experiment with it. Now, again, I like to eat, so for me, it's not a big deal to experiment with things. I think the first thing that I remember, and of course now we're going way, way, way back. My job was to open up the package of oleo and squeeze in this and stir it and stir it and stir it and stir it, and that was butter. Now that's the very first thing that I ever remember. I wasn't cooking, but that's the first thing that I remember. And now years later, I remember another kitchen, and we had this cast iron enamel stove that was so popular in the day. And there was this stool. There was always a stool at the side of the stove. So I would get up on the stool. Now I was pretty little, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6. And I would watch my mother cook. And I just watch her. And I don't remember asking any questions. I remember I wanted to see what she was doing. And I didn't know until quite a bit later that my mother was actually a really, really good cook. And the only one in her family. She's one of 11. She's in the middle of 11. And the only one that had any sense about anything that resembled good cooking. So I lucked out. I have to tell you a story about my mother's mother, my grandmother Winifred. She lived in an apartment building, and they would complain about her cooking. So she would cook these things like, you know, fish and kidney pie and liver and onions and tripe. Now, I don't know if you've ever smelled tripe cooking, but it's something else. So she would come over to our house and stink up our house because no one was complaining except when my father would come home and said, oh, geez, Winifred's been here and she's been cooking tripe. So I watched her, and I grew up with very odoriferous kinds of foods. So to me, you know, strong flavors was ordinary. I mostly create my own dishes. I will open up the refrigerator and see what's in there, and we'll make up something, because I mean there are certain techniques that you learn when you cook. You learn you know, how to bake something, what degree oven you should do for baking. You know, if you're going to sweat a vegetable, or you're going to saute a vegetable, or you're going to caramelize a vegetable. It depends on how high your heat is. So I'm looking at in the refrigerator and I see a bulb of fennel, and I said, oh, well, how are you going to cook that? Well, I shave it. I would shave it paper thin, and then put a little olive oil, a little lemon zest on, a little salt and pepper, and then it would eventually soften, and then I'd eat a whole bowl of shaved fennel. And then so I started serving it to guests when they come over for dinner because it was so delicious. I had some friends that were having some medical difficulties, and so they would say, well, my doc says I can't eat this, or I can't have salt, or I can't have sugar, or I can't have carbs, or whatever. And I'd say, well, give me a list of what you can eat. And I started making really delicious recipes where you don't add sugar, you don't add salt. So I learned about zesting citrus to enhance the flavor of things. And I did this for several friends and came up with all different kinds of recipes to suit their dietary restrictions, but made it look good and it was delicious. So that was fun. And to me, again, that's a piece of alchemy. You know, take this and this and this and then make this. Onions, French onion soup. Oh. A well-stocked refrigerator. Any kind of rice you can imagine. Thailand, Spain, Italy, legumes, any kind of imaginable olive oil that you could want. The other thing is to kind of read about ethnic cuisines, because a lot of the ethnic cuisines are really from what was called poor food. Oh, an example of poor food. This bag of chickpeas. And soak it overnight, boil it, and put it in pasta with some garlic and olive oil, and you've got an absolutely fabulous dish. And this was 59 cents. Quite a few people have asked me, like, well, how do you get interested in food? I mean, I've had a couple of friends that I don't think are ever going to be interested in making food, but they're always going to be interested in eating food. But those that are more interested, I mean seriously interested, I start with, well, what do you like to eat? And then start with a very, very simple something. Okay, you like hamburger. Okay, well, what kind of hamburger? What kind of meat do you buy? Is it fatty? Is it lean? Why don't I'll make you a really good hamburger. And so start with that. And so what else can you make with hamburger? Well, how about adding some beans to it, or some tomatoes, or some pasta? And so just taking one something and then say, well, how about trying this in it, and how about putting this in it? And then if people start to like what they've made to eat, then you've piqued their curiosity. So for me, I love making tagines, like Middle Eastern things with olives and preserved lemons and pickled fruit and Indian and Lebanese and Egyptian foods. And every time I have folks come over for dinner, they love it. And so when we have a good time, and food is communion. To me, it's communion, communion, creativity, creator. It's an act of love, an act of experimenting, an act of joining friends, having conversation. So to me, it's bigger than just making a dish of something. It's about inviting people in and having conversation and laughing. Because when people sit around the table and the food is good, people start talking and they start relaxing and remembering stories that we tell. So to me, it's the full circus. For me, cooking is fun. It's hardly ever a chore. It's fun. So I create things out of my own curiosity, out of my own desire to eat something really good or to have some friends over. One of my goals in life is to have as much fun as I possibly can, because then it doesn't feel like work. Bon appetit.